This boy and girl are going to be well equipped when the time comes to take their places as worthy members of adult society.
Aloha, y'all. This is Daniel Eisenman, the host of the Breaking Normal podcast, where my guests are all invited based on the frequency of synchronicity, all done in person, and all trailblazers in the breaking of all things normal.
All right, we're back. Breaking Normal podcast, episode 200 something. And the last, I would say 10 episodes, it seems about 7 of them were definitely breaking normal individuals in the health field. And it looks like we're continuing that theme today and continuing the theme of Yovel introducing me to awesome people. Yovel here from Let's Do Podcast. We were hanging out at the creek about a week ago or two. I mean, I hang out there every day, but all 3 of us were at the creek about 2 weeks ago. And I saw this lovely lady jumping off the awesome rock in Boulder Creek with my friend Jesse Gold. And then I saw her in the sauna, Ember and Ice. And if you've been following the show, we've had those guys on here too. And it turns out Yovel introduces me to her and encourages us to do a show together. And I think we have many mutual friends, paths, ideas. So I'm excited to jump in here with you, Dr. Christine Smith.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Do you do many podcasts? Have you been on podcasts? Do you have a podcast?
I have been on a number of podcasts. I have started mine kind of organically. It more just took off on like my Instagram channel. So I do a lot of lives and then I'll post those over to YouTube. And it's been on my to-do list to start like an official podcast, but that kind of blew up out of nowhere. So I've just been working with that for now. But I just love getting to talk to people of like minds who talk about ideas and who believe that people are intelligent enough to integrate those things into their lives rather than always doing everything for people. So I think teaching is paramount.
Well, I think this is going to be a fun one, and I'm very aligned with everything what you said. I remember right off the bat, we were talking about Austin and Boulder. Mm-hmm. And because I've lived in San Diego, Austin, and Boulder. Those are like 3 of the places I've lived, and it's particularly Leucadia, North County, San Diego, Encinitas. And I get that question an amazing amount of time. Like, where should I move, Austin or Boulder? Where do you live, and how would you explore that question?
There seems to be a hugely synergistic relationship between the two. I feel like it's the energy of them where both of them have a lot of people that are driving forward and who are working to elevate their levels of consciousness, aren't afraid of shadow work, and love entrepreneurship. And I think between all of those, that's kind of the vibe that they share. But Austin definitely has a lot of energy to it in a way where people are willing to go deep and have like a loyalty, which is really beautiful. And then Boulder is kind of like this grounded yet high altitude type of energy where people are doing the same things, but sometimes they're a little bit more, it's hard to describe outside of kind of like a elemental thing and still capture everything, but it's just like more of like an ether element or like an air element. There's like a spaciousness to the thinking and to the relationships and things like that. And so I think between those, a lot of similar energies run between them. I live here in Colorado, kind of between Denver and Boulder, because I also have a lot of communities in Denver that I love. And then I visit Austin often and have friends that I'm going to Burning Man with that are from there. And so it's, for me, just kind of cohesive communities. And it's like an 1.5-hour flight. So I just fly between the two.
Yeah. I love them both. And I love the water scene at both towns.
True. I do love the weather in Colorado, though. I am partial to that.
If I was going to start getting judgmental, I think the weather's better in Boulder.
Yeah.
We can get all 4 seasons any day of the year.
Also
and
true.
We also get strong, 4 very strong seasons.
In Colorado, if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes. Is what we say.
Yep. Now, you mentioned earlier about something blowing up. Are you saying your social media or the interviews?
Sure.
Why do you think that's happening? Because that's a lot of people's ambition to like blow up their social media.
True. It happened by accident, which I think is actually a good way to start. And it's because it was coming from a really genuine place without trying to sell people stuff. And I've gotten comments from people online of like, this is why I hang out here. And I still direct people to things and have my CTAs and all the other stuff that you're supposed to do on social media now. But I do find it brings like a different type of audience versus when I started, like the reel that went viral was me like talking about something I learned at work that I thought was cool while I was driving home in the dark in the car, and that hit like 4 million views. And so that was talking about insulin degrading enzyme, dementia, minerals, and the physiology between them. And I think people were just really curious to learn the actual physiological relationship of how those things are tied together, because nobody talks to them about it. They just talk to them about the diagnosis, and they talk to them about, kind of ways to prevent it as like lifestyle stuff, but they never teach them what's happening or like when to reach for a certain thing. And so that's a lot of what my practice is about. And what I teach people is just helping them to understand how to use things at home like an apothecary, and realizing that like one protocol or one drug usually is not the answer for anybody. It's like it may be for a time, or an herbal formula might help for a time, but it may not be the thing that you need all the time. And you might need to take breaks from stuff, and you might need to slow down and let your body catch up, and these kinds of concepts. So that's what I talk about on the channel. And I think it's just finally people feeling seen and held in a way where they can be independent and considered intelligent and smart enough to learn these things. I think a lot of doctors kind of gatekeep health, and it's really weird. And it's kind of it's the model from our parents and grandparents' age, and it's not working anymore. And people are smart, and health shouldn't be a hierarchy. Like, you should never give your health away for someone else to manage. Like, we never should have done that in the first place. It's now considered totally normal. And when you think about what you've done, it's a very weird thing. So if you can realize that it's your responsibility to understand how your body works, just like it's your responsibility to get your car maintained when it breaks down, then all of a sudden we have this sustainable model of health. And it's a place where people are told that they're intelligent. They're told that they're designed to heal. They're told that there's community supporting them. And there's other people commenting on it that are going through the same things. And it's actual solutions by understanding physiology, instead of just the fear mongering that happens online, which is like, here's the scary thing, and I'm not going to give you any answers until you do this and pay this and put your email here. Instead of just being like, did you know this about your genetics? And did you know that if you do this one thing, it'll help it? Have a good day. And so that's what the channel started as. And then it's just kind of blown up into all these other functional medicine practitioners and integrative practitioners really talking about what's working and what's not working. And then it's this way that I collect all of these high level professionals in holistic health across the board, across degrees and certifications, that people can then know exist and know to reach out to for a specific issue and know where to find them. Because I think that's a lot of what's going on right now is people know that what they're doing isn't working, but they don't know where to turn. And then a lot of the people that market the best aren't always the best practitioners.
Well, thank you for breaking normal.
Sure.
Yeah, you're definitely doing it. And thank you for that explanation. Let me go back to that. Where did you post that video that went viral first?
That was on Instagram.
And what was that topic? Can you explain?
The relationship between insulin degrading enzyme and dementia.
So how long was that video you made?
60 seconds.
Can you tell us and do this again? Because I'm curious.
Yes. So basically, a couple years ago, there was an article that came out that described this whole process, but it looks at how insulin degrading enzyme runs, and it runs on zinc. And you also need zinc for basically the whole insulin process. And you need it to run the enzyme that also breaks down insulin. So you need zinc to make insulin, and you need it to break down insulin. So then we start looking down the road at brain health, and you think about all these people that eat late at night and eat a bunch of carbs, and then they go to bed, and then they have high blood sugar for the entire night. And so that is essentially giving yourself functional diabetes while you sleep, because you can't pee out that blood sugar. That's just like one example. Or if people are just consistently having high blood sugar from the way that they're eating, they're consistently using up their zinc to make high levels of insulin. And then when you need to break down the insulin so that your cells can survive, you use insulin degrading enzyme to do that. Now, one of the other things about insulin degrading enzyme is another job of it is to break down things like tau tangles in the brain.
Tau tangles?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if I even have heard that term before.
There's a variety of different, we'll just call them tangles, neurofibrillary tangles that can happen in the brain. And this is essentially what they're theorizing is a component of dementia. They used to say it was the cause of dementia. It's really now more just like the built up trash that has happened in the brain. And then dementia is a interrelated element of all of this. Okay. But basically, if you have high levels of insulin, you keep the enzyme that is responsible for keeping your brain clean too busy, to clean your brain. And you use up all the resources that it needs to run by having blood sugar that's too high and having to produce more insulin.
Wow. And you're saying part of the issue is people eating too many crappy carbs at night?
That was just an example. It's just like ways that you can keep your blood sugar high in a not productive way. And if you think about someone who they can live a pretty good lifestyle, but then if they sit there and they carb pound and sugar pound late at night and then go to bed, they're basically giving themselves high blood sugar and functional diabetes while they sleep every night for 50 years. And then they wonder why they have cognitive issues. Basically just soaked your brain in something that rusts it.
Okay. On that note, are you saying that zinc is a good micronutrient to consume in its
Absolutely.
bioavailable food form?
Yes, it is a Goldilocks nutrient. So you need to have it in the right zone. And if you overdo zinc, you can mess up your copper, which a lot of people don't realize there's a relationship there. So just making sure that you do it in right amounts.
Okay. So can someone overdo zinc and copper through food?
Through food, pretty tough.
Yeah. These are more like when people are taking manufactured vitamins with zinc or copper in them, correct?
Well, and considering that because of our agricultural practices, most of our food doesn't even have normal levels of zinc anymore like it did in our grandparents' day. Pretty hard to overdo it from food. But if you're supplementing a lot and you're taking a bunch of different kinds that maybe naturally wouldn't be found together or something, then that can be, because there's like 7 different kinds of zinc. And that's just one example. This goes for like any vitamin, right? You can always overdo stuff. And this is a lot of the time when people come into the clinic, especially after they've been through a bunch of functional medicine practitioners, I spend a lot of time taking them off of things and really focusing on lifestyle.
Well, that's so interesting because I brought a few gifts for you, and this is one of them I brought for you. And I'm actually pretty hungry right now.
Okay, great.
And this is a good opportunity for you to know and other people to know how I use this. I like to use the liver every morning, first thing on an empty stomach, and I feel like I get nourished without, and it like prevents me craving crappier calories.
True, it does. Yeah.
And I have more energy and not weighed down from eating a breakfast, for instance. But one of my understandings, because we're just freeze drying the liver raw, is that my understanding is raw liver has some of the most zinc bioavailable out of any food. There's like oysters, testicles, liver.
Organ meats are by far high in minerals and higher than a lot of things. So yes, I would agree with that.
I just stole a dose from you, but you can have the rest. Do you eat liver? Like, what do you?
I do. I'll take these to Burning Man. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah,
Yeah.
Especially if you get hungry and you're not wanting to sit down and have a meal. And I'm not going to choke on these like the previous guests. I'm going to put a little liquid in my mouth first.
Smart.
But yeah, iron, bioavailable heme iron.
Yeah.
The B vitamins, zinc, copper.
Yep.
I love taking these.
Oh, I love liver supplements. They're great. I will find that every once in a while, like organ meat supplements for highly sensitive people after they've been through like a mold exposure or something, sometimes it's too much for their system. So like I'll have people space them out sometimes. So it's really just listening to your body and seeing how you respond. And like for you, clearly you respond really well to it. And if I can have everybody who's listening take something away from this, it would just be the reminder that the secret sauce is just learning how to listen to your body again. We've known how to do this for millennia. Everyone just forgot because we handed it off to somebody else. But if you can just listen to your body and then try stuff and then realize when it's not working for you or when it is working for you, that is the key to health.
Thank you. I had another question about something. I just lost it.
Oh, sorry.
It slipped. Where do they go? Where does the thought go when it slips? What are thoughts? My friend asked me that last night. What are thoughts?
Okay, I actually probably have a good answer to this. Let me think about that for a
I
second.
know it's like a question my daughter would ask me, and these are sometimes the biggest questions.
Okay, like how woo can I get on your podcast?
As much as you want.
Okay, great. So my background is actually research. I have a very left-sided brain. I got into science because I wanted to have very clear data and answers on everything. And I started studying biology. And once you study biology, to understand it, you have to understand chemistry. To understand that, you have to understand physics. To understand physics, you have to understand quantum physics. Once you start understanding quantum physics, you realize that everything is energy and nothing is separate. And then when you realize that they can measure your brain waves with a magnet that doesn't touch your head, you realize that your thoughts are not in your head. And they're part of this greater field that we are all connected by. And they're now trying to understand how we actually store memories, which is a developing process. Some of it is protein based, and some of it is this theory that we basically store our thoughts in the cloud. So basically you're accessing your own Wi-Fi field. And this is why there is a difference of like meeting somebody in person versus doing something over Zoom. Our biofields are interacting right now. There are low level frequencies that our brains interact on. So having that biofield, you realize that like you have your own biofield, you are your own Wi-Fi, you emit your own Wi-Fi. And so then thoughts can be the process of some of that Wi-Fi coming in, mostly directed as life force and energy, which is why like how you practice your energy and how you maintain your energy can really direct how your thoughts come out in your reality, because it's that life force that then drives a chemical change in the brain that then drives forth whatever is going to come out as like a conscious thought or a verbal thought or anything like that. But when you realize that it's the energy that comes first, this is why stuff like meditation could lead to manifestation, because you have to correct that frequency signal and then it'll actually correct your physiology. And I literally went through my own personal experience of this, because at one point I talk to people a lot about allostatic load, and it's this concept of when your body becomes overwhelmed. I just had so many things going on in my life on like a physical level, a chemical level, and a mental level. My body got overwhelmed. My immune system was starting to act in autoimmune type ways. I basically became allergic to all food. This is how I know sensitivity to supplements really well. I was being made sicker by being put on supplements and medications, and my body was just rejecting all of it. And so I finally got to this point where I was at a loss, and the only thing I had left to do was listen to my body. And my body was like, I want you to sit here and drink water and eat these 3 foods and meditate and do nothing else. So that's basically what I did. But in that process, simply from meditation, all my symptoms started to go away.
What were those 3 foods?
It was not the magic of the foods. It was what my body was willing to tolerate. It was like sweet potato, dark chocolate, if anything.
Wow.
Yeah, we were okay with dark chocolate. It is. Cacao is an amazing antioxidant and stuff. And then I'd rotate like meats and greens, but I definitely did better with meats at that time. I did not tolerate greens well. I did not tolerate detox foods well. All the things that you would think is a healthy diet and what you need to do when you're sick. It depends on what kind of sick you are. So if you are cardiometabolic sick because your blood sugar sucks, then yeah, that's probably the right diet. If your gut is completely destroyed and your liver's not functioning, then you probably need more carnivore. And so it just depends on what's happening.
And you said we were okay with these 3 foods?
Me and my body.
Okay.
Because we developed a whole new relationship out of this experience. And another thing that came out of it was I ended up studying a lot of subconscious work, because when you get to the end of your rope, you just start looking at everything. And I am now trained in about 4 different subconscious modalities. And these are things like NLP and Psych K. And it's like kind of like guided meditation or like light hypnosis to help people change their subconscious patterns. But it's about like helping them get into a bit of a meditative state. So it's not full on hypnosis like people would think of, where it's like you're unaware of the situation. It's getting people into just like an alpha brainwave state so that they're in the programming state and they can program themselves, because it's more about asking them questions and then they do all the work. But in that work, I started doing parts work. And parts work is incredible in so many ways. There's a lot of different modalities that do it in different ways. But once you study enough of them, you realize they all work very similarly. And parts work is about making a relationship with these internal parts of yourselves that are in conflict and talking to them like you talk to a best friend. So it's almost like, in a safe way, internally creating a slight split personality in yourself so that you can talk to that like younger side of you that's throwing a temper tantrum and be like, what do you need right now? Like, what are you asking for? Like, why are you fighting this so hard? And you literally have this internal conversation with these parts. So I started talking to my body very differently in this process. Like, that whole cascade was probably a long time coming with grad school and stuff, which you'd be surprised how many people go through grad school or med school and come out with an autoimmune thing, because you're basically going through like a crazy environment that you're just permanently stuck in sympathetic fight or flight. And, but started having these conversations with my body where all of that started with an injury. And I used to call it my bad knee. And then I started calling it my knee that needs more love. Completely changed the relationship. I'm no longer pissed at my body. I'm no longer angry. I'm no longer resentful and just like seething, which I think so many people are actually stuck in that place in so many ways. And they just push it to the back of their mind and ignore it and then wonder why they have autoimmune pop up. But I was frustrated with my body when I got to this point where I was like, what do you need? I thought about all the different stuff my knee and I have done together. I have put it through hell and back. It's done a great job. And then it got a little damaged, and then it ended up healing without the surgery that 10 different doctors told me I had to have. Your body is designed to heal. You can regrow things like cartilage and bone. Like, there's so many things where we just said, like, this isn't possible. But it's not true. And it really is about how you talk to your body. If you tell your body, we're healing, we're getting better, we have a food sensitivity. I never said I had a food allergy. I said, I have a food sensitivity that flares when I overdo it. And this was the relationship my body and I had with this stuff. And so I will now ask it questions like a third person. So if I'm going to eat something, I'll say, body, can we handle this today? And it'll be like, no, not today. I'll be like, okay, got it. And so you start to make this relationship with it. So yes, I say we.
Have you ever met Paul Chek by chance?
Mm-mm.
No, he's y'all would vibe. And he that was his thing. He would like walk around the grocery store like muscle testing his like what
I
to
also
get.
muscle test. Yes, muscle test. The key to muscle testing is the quality of your question. So when you start studying something like muscle testing, it expands your vocabulary tenfold.
Well, I do want to affirm your ability to communicate. Like I had this. Do you know Dr. Scott Schur by any chance?
That name sounds
He
familiar.
has this company called Transcriptions, and he sells
Okay.
methylene blue.
Okay. Oh yes. Yep.
And I have another guy that's he communicates very amazingly. And he was telling me how people that use methylene blue can communicate faster and clearer. And when Scott was on the show, I was like, I usually listen to podcasts at like twice the speed. I think I'm going to have to listen to this at one regular speed. And that goes for you as well.
Oh, thank you.
You are really communicating sharply and quickly.
Thank you. It's been a practice to develop.
Yeah. Well, and then this has a lot to do with the muscle testing, you think?
I mean, the ability to speak has definitely just been something that's developed over time of practicing speaking to people and trying to slow myself down and use less filler words and all those things that us humans do. But muscle testing and more just like between that and subconscious work, it changes your ability to ask questions. Like I was working with a gal the other day and she muscle tested herself for stuff, and she tested herself on a supplement and it tested strong, and I tested her, which it's harder to muscle test yourself because it depends on what your thoughts are. I muscle tested her and it came up as weak. And so I was like, well, change your question. And her question was, is this a good add to my protocol? And it was yes. That was her body's answer. And then the next question was, do I want this today? And her body said no.
Okay.
So it's like it teaches you these nuances of like, not just like, is this good? But is this good today? Can we handle this today? Is this in our highest good today? Like what are you actually after, right? Just like the difference between like a crappy AI prompt and a really good AI prompt.
I was thinking the same connection.
Yep. That's the same thing. You're just asking the AI of the universe that existed before any of this.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are shocked by how I use AI because of how much I prompt it.
No, you got those long prompts are key if you want good output. Output is equivalent to input in every area of life.
Like you're reminding me. I want to also gift you this book. And I have a few like sentiments.
Thank you.
In the book, like one is that questions are the answers. And then also that you get, I think at the beginning of one of the chapters, there's you get what you give. Okay, what is it? You get what you give. Yeah, you get what you give. Something along those lines.
It's an energetic exchange. And I guess.
Well, how did you phrase it? Say that.
I said input equals output. And for the most part, like you can always like be like, well, I designed this business thing and the output is much greater than the input. So sure, but you still had to put effort in energetically. And I would say the energetic effort usually matches the output.
Somehow this conversation is echoing a lot of the conversation I had last night that definitely left me more questions than answers. And now I'm going to ask you one of the questions that left me with more, especially because you're distinguishing you and your body, because some people believe they are their body.
Yeah, they do. They also believe they're their mind.
What do you believe you are? Or do you believe let me start there. What do you believe you are?
I believe that I'm humble enough to say, I don't know. And I will ultimately I like to think that we are energetic beings having a human experience. They have even done measurements of when people die, their mass actually changes. So like something leaves.
About 28
And
grams, is that
yeah,
the
it's
idea?
like point. It's like a point. It's like a decimal. Yeah. At 0.2, I think 2.8 was the number. Yep.
Yeah.
And so, ooh, this is a good way to describe it. Okay, so there's this image that I really like, and I think it describes this whole concept so simply. And it's this giant, and he's like sitting crouched down under the surface of the earth. He has one hand, and he's sticking his fingers up through the surface of the earth. And then on his hand, you see all these fingers with little faces drawn on them, and they're all talking to each other. And then there's an arrow that points to it, and in parentheses, or in like quotation marks, it says, "You." So really, we are just extensions of the same consciousness having a conversation with each other to experience each other. But we come from the same entity. And that is like foundational quantum physics stuff. And I remember when I was studying all that, especially my science brain, I was like, this is all conflicting. This doesn't work. I'm so frustrated. And I had a mentor, he'd been in practice for 52 years. And I was talking to him about how quantum physics and Newtonian physics battle each other and like how could these possibly coexist. He just said, oh, well, quantum physics fits Newtonian physics under a larger model. So Newtonian physics is quantum physics. It's just quantum physics isn't Newtonian physics. And I was like, oh, completely makes sense. And so as soon as he did that, they stopped having this battle. And then you just kind of like realize like we are all this consciousness having an experience together. I do think that there is like the individual experience. And like we were saying, like we all have our own biofield, our own experience of that. But essentially just this energetic extension who's been gifted a meat vehicle that I'm responsible for taking care of, not your doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the vehicle that you have to experience this life with. And life is short. Like I'm an evolutionary biologist at heart and an anthropologist. So like I have looked at the history of the world since it began, 4.5 million years ago. And you realize this was the best visual description that a teacher ever gave me for this. And the reason I'm bringing it up is to remind people like, just enjoy your life. Like life is short. And he came out, he's my evolution teacher. And he had 4.5 rolls of toilet paper and said, this represents the history of the earth, 4.5 billion years. And then he pulled off like a sheet of one of them, cut out 1/10 of it and held it up with tweezers and said, this is the history of mankind. Yep. So when you get that perspective, you realize that just enjoy your life, try to be a good person, be kind to people, do good things in the world. But all the like super insane stuff that people spend a lot of time stressing out about that they really don't have control over, whether you were here or not, that stuff's going to be happening. So it's just like, and it's going to continue to happen even after we die. So like try to do the best that you can in your lifetime. Find what your gift is and give that back to the world. And then just like, don't stress so much. Like stress is the number one health issue I see coming into the office, and it perpetuates every single other health issue, including autoimmunity.
And so how does someone not get stressed out about that, to not stress?
It's a choice. You choose how you'd like to react to things that are there. And it's like, I'm not necessarily supposed to know what's happening across oceans. Of course, I don't want anything bad to happen to anybody's grandma. And at the same time, I'm a biologist, and it's just like part of living beings and like part of what happens, and it happens in every ecosystem. We have a particularly special way of going about it as humans that is particularly conscious, and that's annoying. But I had actually, vulnerable moment. So I had this kind of internal crisis over the last couple years when everything was changing really dramatically, and particularly like the last 5 years. And especially as like an educator and someone who studies health and wants to teach people how to be empowered, that was one of the most disempowering times of my entire life, being silenced and threatened as a doctor and not able to even talk about our own experiences. Like I had a friend who got fined out the wazoo for talking about his own experience. And I've had friends lose licenses because of it. And I don't think it's something that people have talked about enough, mostly because we're afraid to. And, if you want to cut this part out, you can. But like, it's, I think during that time, it just made me want to teach people more and remind people of what they're capable of. But in that time, I had to ask myself, I was like, okay, well, what's my role? What's my role in all this? Like, I'm not a lawmaker. I'm not a developer of a product. I'm not all of these other things. What am I? Like, how can I play my role? I'm like, well, I'm a teacher. I teach people how their bodies work. I'll do that. And that is when my channel took off. Is I just started teaching people how their bodies work so they can make their own decisions. Because there was no teaching going on during that time, just a lot of fear. And I actually literally during that time, as all that was going on, I happened to be studying an advanced practice module in immunity for a functional medicine institution. And it was just really interesting to watch what was called science and what is science, especially with a research background. Like, I know how to find bad research. And so it's just an interesting realization during that time of where should I put my focus, because I could have gotten pulled down a lot of dark rabbit holes, and I did. And I started to get to a place where I was feeling kind of hopeless, which isn't good for anybody. And then I realized I just didn't want to live that way. Even if the world blew up tomorrow, I don't want to live that way. I don't want my mind to be there. I don't want my heart to be there. And so I chose the energy that I wanted to have in my life, and I chose what I could affect and what I couldn't affect. And for the things that I couldn't affect, I am aware of them, but I choose to not emotionally engage with them. And I choose to invest my emotional currency, of which we have limited amounts, in the stuff that matters that I can't affect.
All right, here's another big question, and thank you for all that. I can relate to a lot of that, and I think I understand a lot of what you're alluding to. The other question that we were contemplating last night, for this idea of embodying this meat suit, do you believe you were here before the meat suit was formed or after the conception?
I believe that neither you or I or anybody listening ever didn't exist. I believe that we are all recycled energy, and that when we are coming into conception, the universe rearranges that energy into our particular format. But that energy is not new.
And do you think it was a choice?
Depends on how, like, past life Akashic records you want to go, but like, I will be humble enough again to say I don't know, but we can speculate. And I find the subconscious work fascinating, because I'll do like past life regressions and stuff sometimes for like deeper appointments with people. People totally have memories. It's fascinating, and like even ones that are eerily accurate on things. And so like, who am I to say that answer? I don't know. Okay, this is my take for this piece right here. So a lot of people will look at someone who has a lot of good things in their life happen, and they'll be like, oh, they're just so lucky. And that person who is the quote unquote lucky one just holds this like positive field all the time, and they just assume their life is going to work out, and they just assume that good things are going to happen. They assume that people are good people. Even when they get jaded, they go back to assuming that. And they just know, because they're like, this is the belief that I want to have. I just know it'll work out. It didn't work out like 17 times along the way for that person, just like everybody else. But that person has the belief that it will work out. So they're less miserable about it than somebody who's focusing on their 17 failures. So whether or not that person is actually lucky, it's still working out for them. So why don't you mimic their behavior? And so I think a lot of people think that it's like this, oh, like this was my life timeline and this was my choice and I had to live through these traumas and blah, 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 and it doesn't work out for me and this person's lucky and we have separate journeys. Sure. How do you want to be? How do you want to live? What perspective do you want to have? That is what the subconscious work is about. And I can't, like, the majority of the time that I spend with people doing that work is figuring out what they even want. Because most people don't know. They haven't thought about it. They've thought about it for material goods, but that's it.
I recently saw like an Instagram short with Bruce Lipton.
Yeah, love him.
And he was, the way I remember it was that so many people, it was like, so many people cannot write down what they want. Mm-hmm. Do you know, I've worked with like thousands of people and I asked them to write down what they want and they can't do it. And that's why why they're getting what they don't want.
Yes.
They can't even write it down. And then their mind can't work to make it happen because there's no. You
need a map. The universe needs to know what to build. It needs a blueprint. So yeah, if you can just stay in that happier place, it might make you luckier, or it might just make you assume everything's going to work out and you'll get the same result either way.
Yeah, we probably resonate a lot. So I appreciate you, Abel, once again. You know, when people tell me good luck, I have actually told many people, like, I actually don't believe in, I think I get your intention, but I don't believe in luck the same way you do. But thank you. And it reminds me too of why I think like poker, I used to play a good bit of poker in college, and how it's such a good metaphor for life, because the really good poker players, what happens, how people really get robbed in poker is they can't take a bad beat. They go on tilt. They do everything right. They lose it all. And then they'll just start losing. They'll get more and lose more, because they're on tilt and they are so caught up,
messed up their energy
in that bad beat.
Yeah.
And the guys that are girls that are good at it, they can have that bad beat and they play the next hand like it's the first hand they've ever played.
I think that's everybody in life. And entrepreneurs, parents, teachers, like anybody, that applies.
And what happens a lot of casinos, there's like 10 people waiting for the guy on tilt, and they'll just take everything from that. Like I don't know if you've ever watched Rounders by any chance, but it's a great movie with who's the guy from Good Will Hunting? Matt Damon and Edward Norton.
Okay, I bet that's good.
And there was a great little line in there. I remember when they were talking about, you know, on a poker table, like, if you don't know who the sucker is, then you're it. And everyone's just waiting for that sucker to go on tilt, basically.
Well, okay. So this, I feel like you'll like this part. So this brings my thinking to a thing that we mentioned earlier that I think a lot of people are afraid of, which is shadow work. And that's a lot of what this work is figuring out how to not let stuff knock you out. And that shadow work is figuring out why stuff knocks you out. And it's usually an ego thing, and it's usually from like childhood in some way, and it's usually like feeling not good enough. And everybody deals with that. So don't feel ashamed about it and avoid it because you feel ashamed, because then you'll never fix it. So just acknowledge that shame is something everybody feels, acknowledge that it's an agent for change, and acknowledge that everybody goes through this. And so when you think about these people that are stuck really in their own way because they don't want to believe that things will work out, and then they blame their past traumas because of it, which, like, I have been through plenty in my life. I get it. And do you want to continue giving your power to that thing? Because if you continue to stay miserable, you are handing your power over to this thing that took your joy in the first place. And I think a lot of people think that healing trauma and whatever is about figuring out your story and figuring out blame and fault. And it's really not. It's more about forgetting your story and remembering everything that it made you forget, which is joy and happiness and innocence and naivety and like this awe for the world. And if you can tap back into that, of which shadow work tends to be the key for it, that is where you're going to find that energy for when you're on. And that's what's going to like carry you forward. But this requires going inward and doing the work of like, okay, wow. Okay, so I blamed this other person for that, but actually this was my role in it. And I'm going to take responsibility for that without feeling bad about it. And I'm just going to acknowledge that I want to be different next time. And I'm going to review this whole set of beliefs that I have that was gifted to me by my family. And I'm going to ask myself if I actually believe those things, even though it's probably going to create separation from my family. And these are the things that we have to work on to really like come into adulthood and step into ourselves. And most people are terrified of it. And then we wonder why relationships don't work out, or people get divorced or have midlife crises because no one's asked themselves what they wanted for their whole life until they're 50. And so it's this component of being able to tap into these and not being afraid of it. Or like, that's how you cure this energy. Like I was talking to someone the other day and we were doing subconscious work, and he has been just stuck. He's been stuck in a negative place. And like he went through some health stuff, very understandable. Like health, the brain health relationship, like I presented it earlier as like your thoughts result in your physiology, which I will believe to be true above all else. But also your physiology makes it that much harder to maintain your thoughts and your frequency. Because if you have inflamed, messed up physiology, it makes your neurotransmitters really funky. And then it's hard to keep positive thoughts. Like I get that. But he's gotten caught in this place of negativity. And when I asked him, like, okay, like what's a safe place in your mind, in your imagination that we can go to have a conversation with this part of yourself? Could not come up with one. And I get that that's like an unusual exercise for people. But if you are at the point in your life where you're middle-aged and you cannot come up with an imaginary safe place in your brain to go hang out, mine's like a mountain meadow with a lake, it probably means you should think about it more. And you should develop that pathway in your brain, and you should create that in your reality. And again, it goes back to the, like, they just haven't even thought about it. And this is what Joe Dispenza's stuff is all about, and like changing the brain. He basically has you focus really hard, just like you're saying about Bruce Lipton. They're right on point with each other. Write everything down. Imagine what you want. Now imagine what that feels like. Now step into it. Now feel it, and feel it in your body. But if you never wrote it down, or you never even imagined a place where you feel safe, no wonder you feel unsafe all the time. You can't even come up with a safe place in your head. So it's just this concept of having people practice these things and realizing that this stuff, your health, your body, your mind, your mood, your emotions, it's not backseat stuff. It's the front seat stuff. It should be the priority of your entire life. That is you as a human. This is what we came to this planet to do as humans. We didn't come to sit at a desk. We came to have a human experience and grow through our shadow stuff and our evolution and our relationships and build community and have a lifelong human experience of richness. If you're prioritizing your Friday deadline over that and you're depressed and unfulfilled, it might be why.
Now you reminded me of that full sentiment. You get what you give, and you see what you're looking for. That was the other part of that. I know. Anyways, the thought came back.
Totally. I agree with that.
All right. Are you ready for these? Well, how are we doing on timing right now? 42. Good. You want to do some like the preloaded popcorn questions?
Sure.
All right. By the way, where do people follow you?
They can follow me on Instagram at Dr. Christine Smith. And they can also follow me on YouTube at Depth, DEPTH, Wellness. That's like you have depth. And so just reminding them that they can find those there. The Instagram stuff is going to be like fast, quick info, sometimes a few lives, but all those lives get uploaded to the YouTube as well. So YouTube's more like long form content like this.
Cool. Awesome. All right. You ready? What's one hidden injury people ignore that's secretly wrecking their vitality?
Leaky gut. Hands down. Number one thing. Because people don't realize that when you get injured, twist your ankle, have some kind of chemical exposure, like breathing in the fires when they're going on, or if you have an emotional injury, like going through a divorce or having a friendship end or losing a job, all of those create an inflammatory state in your body that actually creates permeability in the gut. And then when you get leaky gut, you get toxins leaking through into your bloodstream. They start to affect your brain. You start to get clouded thinking. You start to get more anxious. It creates more inflammation. It creates this whole horrible cycle. And then all of a sudden, 5 years after your divorce, you're wondering why you have Hashimoto's.
All right. Wow. Hashimoto's, that was that other Ryan Monahan as well. That was...
Yes, just an example of whatever. They can, I mean, it's whatever your Achilles heel is. And then if you want to get, Eastern medicine and woo with it, you can go into the fact of like chakras and stuff. And it's like a lot of people who develop Hashimoto's and autoimmune of this area have suppressed their voice in some way.
Leaky gut. How does someone know if they have leaky gut?
It can start very subtly, but it's usually all of the little symptoms that we have that we just kind of write off and take a pill for. Mm-hmm. People are like, oh, I have joint pain. Let me take an Advil. Oh, I have a migraine. Let me take an Excedrin. Like, instead of being like, why do I have a migraine? Why do I have joint pain? Let me figure that out. So it's like, if you chronically have inflamed joints and arthritis, especially if it's off and on, that off and on is a signal of like when you're inflamed. So that like off and on thing, if you're getting bloated, it doesn't always show up as gut symptoms. Mine showed up as depression. It was like anxiety and depression was like highly connected to my gut stuff. And a lot of women deal with that. People who have had concussions deal with that. Nobody really talks. If you get a concussion, you inevitably have leaky gut, highly connected. Blood-brain barrier and your gut barrier are very similar.
Wow. So I'm adding more of my popcorns in between the preloaded ones. What does someone do about that?
Sure. So naturally, if you think about like what our ancestors did, or like just like let's think logically for a second. Let's say your body is feeling really inflamed and backed up and just like not great, and you're like your stomach just kind of feels eh. Do you really want to like eat a lot of stuff? Not usually. So what our ancestors would have done if they ate something that made them feel meh, they just didn't eat more stuff for a while. So if you do a little bit of a fast and then you eat nourishing things for your gut, so think soft things, right? Not rough vegetables like kale, which people are like, but kale is healthy. It's like, well, it depends on the state of your gut. If your gut's inflamed and it's pissed off, think about when your skin is really irritated, same skin, inside skin, outside skin, same skin. You want oils, you want fats, you want proteins. So think like meat and fat and that kind of stuff. And that's going to soothe the gut, which is why carnivore can be great when people are super inflamed. But then if you only do that for a while, you don't feed your microbiome enough, and then you don't transform your hormones enough, and then your testosterone can drop and all this stuff. So it's like therapeutic things at therapeutic times. So if you have leaky gut, like bone broth is one of the most natural things that you can do to heal your leaky gut, because the glutamine, the collagen, the minerals, all that kind of stuff. I just make my own at home in a crock pot, put all the stuff in, ignore it for 10 hours. You're good. Got meat for the week. Super easy to do.
Then I'll have to get you some of our femur creamer, which is freeze-dried bison bone broth.
Excellent. Okay. So yeah, all of your products, right, would be great for this kind of stuff. So anything bone broth oriented, the organ meat supplements can be helpful. But again, it depends on the state of it. So if you're someone where it's like you live a pretty normal life, you haven't had toxin exposures, your stress is like middle line, you're probably fine doing just like some normal basic gut protocol. If you're someone who's super stressed out and you just went through like a crazy mold exposure and a breakup and had a car accident, then you're probably going to need something a little bit different. And you might need something gentler, because people who have been through toxin exposures don't detox well. So they can't handle detox foods and they can't handle plant irritants. And so it's like, and they're not the candidates for a bunch of probiotics because their body's already too pissed off. So probiotics are not the answer to every leaky gut scenario. They can be a part of it, especially later. But in the beginning, it just depends on what's going on.
All right. If I understand, your work blends neuroscience and chiropractic.
Mm-hmm.
What's the ultimate mind and neck connection you've discovered? Mind and neck.
Mind and neck?
Yeah, like literally the neck. Is there?
Oh, interesting. Okay. So my original like research background, I was going to go to med school for neurology, and then I chose chiropractic because I saw what touch can do in health, and touch is like totally missing from our healthcare system, and it can transform a nervous system in an hour if you do it right. And so it's like people who've been stuck in fight or flight, I do like a trauma release technique, 3 appointments, most of them are done. We just got rid of a guy's OCD in like 2 appointments. So it's, I think touch is a huge component of things. And when you start talking about the neck, let's see, can you expand on that question slightly? Can you just say it another way?
Yeah, like from me to have a healthy mind, what is the most powerful thing I can do with like my physically with my neck? Got it.
Okay. So I find most people maintain their cars better than their body. If you're maintaining your car better than your body, you should probably review that. And when you think about like all the different stuff that we go through in life, from that crash on the soccer field you had when you were a teenager, to that snowboarding thing, to that ski thing, to that car accident, to that fender bender, to that tweak you had in your neck, to that sleeping wrong, to that football accident, your body's gone through a lot, right? So let's maintain it. And as you maintain all the stuff in the neck, it takes pressure off of the brain in a lot of different ways. So when we're talking about like systemic pressure, I'm talking about that allostatic load again. If you have physical inflammation and injury going on in your body, you're going to have less chemical and emotional resiliency. So just simply by taking care of your neck, your brain is going to work better. and you're going to be more tolerant of emotions, and you're going to be more tolerant of toxins in the environment because you're no longer overwhelming your immune system with that inflamed neck. So this is why I love chiropractic work. And a lot of people think chiropractic is just about like cracking stuff and like cracking your neck and you're out. And there's some people that work in like 5-10 minute appointments and they do great work. And sometimes they're really good at moving stuff and I go to them if I need to. I see people for like an hour in my office. We work on a bunch of different stuff. And so it's like, it's not just the cracking for me. It's understanding the movement of the structural tissue and then the soft tissue. And it's like working on hardware and then updating software and then sending a signal through and then updating it again. So for me, it's much more like a computer system and like a mechanics system, mixed with life force and quantum as this like giant ocean. So all of that. And that's like the body is a hologram concept, which can be a whole other kind of conversation. But simply by maintaining the nerve pathways, the curvature, the posture, all of that takes strain off the soft tissues. All of that takes strain off the inflammation and immune system. And it allows the signals to go back and forth between your brain and your body more effectively, which is really what chiropractic is all about. It's just helping the brain and the body communicate so that your life force can be expressed. That's the whole purpose of it. Then you'll always operate better. So I'm a huge advocate for body work. I'm getting body work after this so that I'm not a hypocrite because I threw a rib out and I would like to have it back in.
Wow. All right. Yeah, I'm craving some body work right now. What's the weirdest subconscious belief you've helped someone rewire with Psych K? Is it Psych K? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Psych K is one of them. That one's cool because it's a muscle testing technique. So you can help someone figure out if they're lying to themselves. It's really cool. Oh. Yeah, so someone will be like, I want to believe this. And it'll be like, actually, you already believe that. Okay, well, I want to believe this. Okay, your cells don't agree with that. So let's help imprint that one. Then you use neurological postures to imprint. Trying to think of the weirdest one. I had like a really cute one where I had like an 8-year-old come in. She'd been in a car accident with her dad and she was scared to get in the car. We did one balance. She got in the car and left. Perfectly happy. And we just had to balance. It's safe to be in the car with dad. Like her body just didn't believe that. Her mind knew, but her body didn't believe it. So we integrated it into her body and she was fine. I think, the interesting thing about Psych K is it's all about the quality of your balances, balance being like this integration process rather than the quantity. And so it usually ends up being talking to people about a whole bunch of stuff that's going on in their lives. And then it always comes down to some core belief. And they're really basic core beliefs like I'm enough or well done or I easily release my anxiety and trust the universe. And sometimes it's just a feeling that we shift. Sometimes the feelings are way more powerful. I actually love doing feelings with men because you guys are already analytical anyway. And so sometimes we can do a statement around things and then I'll do like statements with women, right? So sometimes you need to counterbalance stuff, but it depends on what's coming up for them. But I'll find men often resonate with the feeling a lot. And I think it's because you guys don't get to feel because you have to live this double society. Well, you do feel, but you're not allowed to. And so it's like this weird societal standard. And so they'll come in and we'll be working on something. I don't need to know anything about what's going on. And we were just shifting a feeling the other day from, basically dread to optimism. And so that's all we did. We just sat there in the posture and we waited for his internal system to shift and transmute this feeling. And like I'll mix NLP in there sometimes and give them like a color to work with if they need something tangible, depending on if they're like a kinesthetic or a visual person. And then we just waited for his system to transmute this. Took him about 2 minutes. And then came back out, tested strong. His body was now on that path. And this is the person where we've been working with some really old patterns. And there's always layers of stuff. And so it's not like one thing is always the answer. But I do find that just a simple shift, something like that, it's different in subconscious work. It's not that you leave and you're like, I consciously know all this stuff. It's like you leave and you're like, I just feel slightly different. And then the next week you realize that thing that used to scare you doesn't scare you anymore. Or you're like, I just did this thing that I've been procrastinating on forever and I didn't even think twice about it. How'd that happen? That's the subconscious work.
Wow. Okay. I like that. Thank you. If chronic inflammation were a personality, how would you describe it?
This is like parts work. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm going to describe it in the way that I want people to see it. Because I could describe it as this like annoying personality, of which it can be, but that's the wrong mindset. That's a victim mindset. So when we come to the empowering, nurturing adult mindset, it's this toddler in you that has a stomach ache and twisted their ankle and got stung by a bee. Soothe that kid. Ask them what they need. Get them ice for the sting. Rub their ankle and hold them. And just continue asking what they need until they calm down. And I think that's the best way to look at it, because then you're basically reparenting your own immune system, which is the actual effective outcome that we're after. Versus if you sit there and you're like, it has this personality of being a narcissistic, complaining, blah, 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 like then people are going to get stuck there. So instead, focus on it as this part of you that you need to take care of, because it's an infant and innocent and naive and simply trying to be safe and protect you. And that's what every single part of you is for. And whenever people dissociate and create fractured parts of themselves, usually from complex PTSD, that's how you integrate it. You go find that part, you talk to it, you ask what it needs to feel safe, and you bring it back in. Every single subconscious technique works very similarly to that. And so if you can integrate these parts again, this is how you start to create wholeness in the psyche. And when you create wholeness in the psyche, you no longer have static in that energetic field we were talking about earlier.
Wow. I'm excited to re-listen to this.
Me too.
When the body says something's off, what's the most overlooked signal?
Energy. When you are feeling fatigued in your life and drained, look at what's draining your energy. Like, things that are good for you should give you life force. And this is the tougher one that I have in practice with people sometimes. I will have people come in and I know that they're in a toxic environment relationally. And then they're coming in with all these health problems. And they've done all the right things. And we're doing all the right things. And they're not having a shift. It's because they're surrounded by something toxic.
One myth people have about healing they should drop. What is it?
That it's a destination. It is a system that you maintain. You're in a vehicle. Maintain your vehicle or it will pull to the right. And you cannot be mad at it when it does later when you never aligned it. And you can't be mad at your engine for going out if you never change the oil.
All right. My understanding is you healed from mold toxicity.
One of many things, but yes, that was a big one.
What was the first thing that shifted?
My brain and my energy. Mold notoriously creates like fatigue and apathy. And it was like the weirdest kind of depression I've ever been through. I've been through depression before from like life circumstances, but that was like a chemical depression. And it wasn't like people understand depression as like a lack of serotonin. All of that research is basically being disproven now. You can go look at meta studies all over this. It's basically depression is inflammation of the brain. And your neurotransmitter is not working right. Sometimes it's circumstantial, but a lot of the time it's just inflammation, and everyone's inflamed now. And if you can manage that inflammation, it can usually bring it down. But apologize. Can you repeat that question one more time?
It was, what was the first thing that shifted? And you
first
said
thing,
your mind.
the energy and stuff. So if you can get that inflammation down, it dramatically shifts everything. The thing about clearing from mold is it's not fast. And it's a very weird, slow process. Now, I got the joy of going through it 3 times in about a year, which is also why I reacted so poorly. Plus the stress that I was going through emotionally and being physically injured in the flames. So that just everything had a megaphone. But in going through it 3 times, I had this experience of what it was like to be okay. Because that question, I'm like, I almost have to answer it in the reverse, because it's hard to know what the first thing that shifted coming back was, because it's like a slow thing. But when you get hit with it, especially after you already know it, you're like, oh crap, tomorrow I'm not going to be able to remember a phone number. And that's what happened. And so I came up with this description of what it's like for me. And when it was coming on, I think this was like the 3rd time I got hit. I was like, I have to record this time so I can remember. It was this feeling of like, and this is when it's hitting you. And so the answer to your question would be the opposite in coming out of this, right? But when it hits you, it's like all of a sudden, everything, all your thoughts and emotions that you knew, if you imagine standing in like this big hallway where everything is stored, it's all of a sudden empty. And you're just standing in like this foggy purgatory where all your thoughts and emotions used to be, with no ability to focus. And then you like might kind of focus on something for a second and like see a thought train. And then you get distracted because you're inflamed and you have ADD. And then you look back over to your thought train and it's just gone. And you're just standing there in this purgatory of yourself in your own mind. I would sit on my bed and stare at the wall for 2.5 hours and like not even realize it. So it's like you like almost don't even live in this timeline anymore. And when you think about the fact that you're basically being invaded by a creature that operates on frequency, you are then dealing with all these other, like people get this feeling with parasites too. You feel like it's that same feeling that you have when you feel like someone's in your home. You're just like a little bit on edge and you just feel like something is off, but you can't tell what it is. It's that same internal feeling the whole time. And then at the same time, your brain just shuts down. Like no way would I have been able to finish this sentence or pick up a thought train. Like the fact that I can do that again and be on a podcast again, like I couldn't be on podcasts during that time. I couldn't even think. And like, it's such a weird experience to go through. And I'm a decently smart person. And like, I literally could not remember a phone number and I had to stop reading labs because I couldn't interpret the data. So it was the reverse of all that. It was feeling like I had a personality again, feeling like I cared about anything, feeling like I had energy, feeling like, so my symptoms from it and like from food and what I was dealing with was my skin. So my symptoms were incredibly obvious. That's how I kind of considered myself clear. But I basically just had a completely raw skin from like my chest all the way up to my nose and in my armpits for like 2 or 3 years. It's like the most miserable time of my life. Wow. And so that's how I knew when I was at the Joe Dispenza conference that it was making a difference. My rash was going away at the conference from meditation alone. Whoa. And I was eating foods I was sensitive to. So that's the power of the mind.
And this might be redundant, but maybe they'll bring up something different. What's the nervous system hack that changed the most for you?
The trauma release response. That's why I got into body work. I thought I was going to do like stem cell research. I was all set up to be in research and ended up, yeah, oh, that's right. We had a 100-hour exam and I was super stressing out about it. And at this point, like I tried to like I had, anxiety as a teenager, as a lot of teenagers do. As a female, you're then immediately put on hormones and then immediately put on antidepressants. And then everybody ignores you for the next couple of years while you develop weird chemical things. And I didn't realize I'd been put on an antidepressant that basically perpetuated my norepinephrine anxiety pathway. So it made my anxiety worse, turned into panic attacks. And I didn't understand what was happening to me. I was all prepped to like go to med school and do all this stuff. And I was really desperate. And we had this 100-hour exam and I kind of had a freak out and ended up reaching out to this like energetic PT my aunt referred me to. And I was like, whatever, I'll see the woo-woo guy because I'm very heavy in research still at this point. And he did the touch technique that I was talking about. And it's like just a couple kinds of touch done in a specific rhythm that basically stimulates the brain in a certain way where it makes it enter a meditative state and reprograms the amygdala. 3 appointments, 6 hours, completely out of fight or flight. Never used another medication again. I was like, what did you do to me, dude? And then I got into cognitive neuroscience and joined a different lab and started studying how the brain and the body affect each other. And I now use that technique when people are really, 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 really stuck. And not everybody is that stuck in their nervous system. But if you're that stuck, you're not going to absorb nutrients or supplements anyway. So if you're one of those people where you've been taking all the things and eating all the right things and nothing's changing, it's probably because you're locked in a cell danger response. And this is why I work with the mind, is because if we can get your mind to unlock your cells, then you can actually release toxins and absorb nutrients. And so that technique, if someone is in that locked state, will unlock them if they've tried everything else. But it comes back to touch. It's the same as, there's a whole book about it called Touching. And she talks about how animals, when you have baby animals and their parent doesn't like lick a certain part of their body, that organ doesn't work as well. And so we've completely lost touch from our healthcare system. And it is the most foundational part of all of it.
Okay. And this, once again, we'll just end it here. If you can finish this sentence for me. True healing starts with
you. You are the key to all of it. No one can heal you.
Well, thank you. What are we on the time here? What do we do?
1 hour and 4.
Nice. Do you have any questions for me?
What did you find most interesting?
Oh, I think I find it interesting that I'm very excited to re-listen to
Me too.
this.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
To see if I fully understand everything you said, because there was certain times when you were speaking, it was almost like a hypnotic, positive, subconscious programming.
Great. I'll be really curious to hear what part of that was for you, because I always think, I don't know, I always worry that I'm talking too simply, but I'm like continually having to make it simpler.
Well, yeah, you were making some big concepts simple, but they're still big concepts, and you were really bringing empowerment to these topics in a very precise, concise, quick way.
Thank you.
So I imagine the work you do is very powerful.
Thanks. The reels were actually really good training for being more concise. Forced me to be able to say what I need to
doing
say
like
in like
Instagram
30
reels?
seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, made me better at elevator speeches.
Yeah, I for Breaking Normal, I have the podcast that we're on, the book that's yours.
Thank you.
I had an app where it was like there was different tribes of people, and there was a question of the week, and you only had one take, and you can't edit it, no filters, and you had to answer it in one take. And other people could see your response, and they had to give you feedback in one take. And the only way you could see their feedback is if you give them feedback. And then what it was this training to communicate what's most important in 30 seconds or less. And what an exercise.
100%. Yep. I think the lives trained me well too, because there is no editing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. See?
So it's like there's no getting to be casual. There's like you're just on. So it's yep, I agree with that. It's been a learning.
And tell us your IG, where to follow you one more time.
Just Dr. Christine Smith.
Dr. Christine Smith. Look at that. What another epic connection, Yovel. Thank you. Let's do podcasts. Is definitely breaking normal.
Yes, thank you.
Thank y'all for tuning in. Hey, ask your questions, leave your comments, leave your questions below. I'd rather have more questions to think about than projections. So let's ask the good questions and let's go.
Yeah, what do you want to hear more about?
Yeah. See y'all soon.